View from the Gutters presents The Long Run, Episode 3. Welcome to The Long Run, a show format where we discuss comic series longer than a single trade or graphic novel. On this episode, we discuss Ultimate Spider-Man featuring Peter Parker. And stay tuned after the discussion for recommendations of books you might enjoy if you liked Ultimate Spider-Man. Welcome to View from the Gutters presents The Long Run, Episode 3. I'm Andrew Chard.
I'm Joe Preddy.
I'm Tobiah Panchin.
And I'm Cade Reynolds, and I feel really bad for recommending this.
Yeah, you should.
It was a big read, but
That's
kind of what this show's for us. Is let's tackle a bigger issue.
I think 160 was pushing it. I really do.
I think that we have found our limit.
I'm going to recommend all of.
Don't say it at the end of this.
No, I'm Amazing Spider-Man from 19.
Yeah,
whenever.
I'll tell you what. You have fun with that.
Are we going to start Amazing Spider-Man, or are we starting Amazing Fantasy?
Amazing Spider-Man. Well, we have to start there. So everything Peter Parker's ever been in, including
if
all of the crossovers.
If you get Essential Spider-Man, that includes.
We will never
15.
stop reading.
No, we won't. And Joe's dead.
Yeah,
he died from the thought of that.
I'm not reading that.
I can do it for the long run.
I think we did.
I have actually read over 400 issues of Amazing Spider-Man.
Wow.
I've read.
I think
So many issues I've read.
X-Men I've read.
It feels like a lot.
Too many.
I've read a lot of X-Men. I've read the entire Modern Age run of The Flash. I've read the entire Modern Age run of Green Lantern. I've read the entire Modern Age run of JLA, which started with Morrison stuff.
You didn't do that in like two months to prepare for a show. Like
I probably did, but I enjoyed it a lot more. So it wasn't the chore that this was.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
it was also...
So, on this episode, we're talking about Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yes.
And we read
Ultimate Spider-Man, the Peter Parker years.
Yes, we read everything that Peter Parker was in, basically.
That's true.
That is all of Ultimate
more or less.
Spider-Man.
I skipped
Miles
a couple.
Morales is Ultimate Comics Spider-Man.
Right, technically
Okay,
different show. But yeah, so do we want to go initial thoughts
I wanted to talk a little bit about it, because I recommended it.
Go for it.
So one of the things that first got me into Ultimate Spider-Man to begin with, I got out of comics around issue 68 or so when this was coming out, so I hadn't read nearly this much. And I was a huge Amazing Spider-Man fan, and the movies that came out in the early 2000s are completely different than Amazing Spider-Man. I was talking to Joe about this the other day because he didn't know Mary Jane in high school. He didn't know Gwen Stacy in high school. He didn't know Harry in high school. Those were all his college and post-college graduation friends in Amazing Spider-Man. And so when you went to see the Spider-Man movies, if you were an actual Spider-Man comics fan, you didn't know what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
Why does he know Mary Jane? He's still in high school. Why isn't he engaged to Gwen Stacy before he meets Mary Jane? All that kind of shit. And so, so Ultimate Spider-Man for me was a way for them to start over and for them to tell those other stories in a way that if they're trying to get people to recognize Mary Jane before the other characters, this is a new way to do it.
Yeah, I think that what I really enjoyed about Ultimate Spider-Man when I started reading, I think I've told this story on the show before, but I had basically gotten out of comics. I had sold all of my collection from high school and stuff to go back to to go to college for the first time to buy books and stuff. So I had kind of given all my comics away or sold all of them and was like, I'm done with buying these because I don't don't have money. I'm in college. I'm broke. So I didn't read anything. And somebody handed me Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 3 of the trade. They were just like, I have this, and I don't know how I feel about it, so here you go, and just gave it to me. And I read that, and it was like, oh, man, like, this is... I forgot why I really liked comics so much. This is just, like, fun stories about heroes punching villains. I really liked it, and that's the Doc Ock story, if you read them in single issues. The third trade is when he meets Doc Ock. And what I really liked about that was how interconnected everything from Peter's life was. Because they had a chance to sit down and sort of plot it out from the beginning, you had a world in which the origin story of Spider-Man was also the origin story of the Green Goblin and Otto Octavius as Dr. Octopus. Like, all this stuff was interconnected in a way.
There's actually a word for that. It's called adaptation distillation.
Yeah. Where... and they were able to, like, everything that had happened in Amazing Spider-Man, they were kind of able to, you know, rework into this very intricate story now. And that's what I really appreciated when I first read it. I was like, oh man, they're really, you know, going back and giving this a new taste. And the other part that I really enjoyed about it was it's a young hero again, which I've talked about millions of times on the show, but that's my favorite time when superheroes are superheroes, is when they're young, they have personal problems, they don't know if they want to be a hero or not, they don't know if what they're doing is right, they make mistakes, they're learning. Like, that kind of stuff is a lot more compelling to me than a world in which Superman is already, like, perfect and, like, knows how to defeat enemies and, like, knows what they're doing and just comes in and saves the day all the time. And so that's what I really liked about Ultimate Spider-Man. It's what got me into it. After I read that trade, I went out and bought, like, tons more of it and read a bunch of it. So this is always going to have kind of a special place in my heart as, like, getting me sort of back into comics in a weird way. But that being said, there are faults in the book, and we'll get to those.
One or two here or there.
Yeah, perhaps. We'll get to those. Toby, do you want to talk a little bit about your kind of initial impressions on the book?
Well, I mean, since you two guys both talked about kind of where you were approaching the book from,
our origin story,
I'll talk a little bit about mine too, because this is actually, like, I feel like I have a very complex relationship with this book. Mm-hmm. So growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, and so I wasn't able to collect comics as a kid because I didn't have the money to do it. Like, we lived way off in the boonies. The only comic book shop that I could get to regularly wasn't a comic book shop. It was a bookstore that was probably a front from the mafia, because they would just get, like, a random assortment of things every week, some of which were comics. And so, like, sometimes they would get comics in and sometimes they wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And the nearest real comic book store was like half an hour or 45 minutes away, which we only got to like once every 3 or 6 months.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, my brother and I got Transformers and G.I. Joe every month. Like, those were our dedicated comics. Mm-hmm. And then, like, everything else that we had was a grab bag of stuff that we got at yard sales or, like, random trips to the comic book shop. Mm-hmm. Or because somebody gave them to us. Like, it was a very eclectic thing.
Yeah.
And as a kid, like, I loved Spider-Man. I loved him so much. Like, we talk about Batman on the show a lot. Spider-Man is my Batman.
Yeah.
Like, he is the character that I have an undying love for in my heart. Mm-hmm. And so when I moved to Olympia to go to college, I suddenly had a small amount of spending money because my grandfather was giving me like $30 a month or whatever just to do whatever with, like, go out. And so, of course, I spent that on comic books. And so, like, the second day I was at college, my RA took me downtown to the Danger Room. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, like, I have money and there are comic books and I can just come here, like, anytime I want to. This is amazing. And so I started picking up Ultimate Spider-Man and Ultimate X-Men because those were, like, brand new on the shelf. And I was like, I heard this is really cool on, like, the internet that they just invented. And so I started reading Ultimate Spider-Man, and that was, like, the main book that I was getting. And I bought it for, like, the first, I want to say 30-some, like, I think the last one I have is, like, 33. It's the beginning of the Venom saga. Or the first Venom arc, I guess. And that was around the point 2.5 years later that I was getting out of superhero comics because I was so sick of Ultimate X-Men, which was being written by Mark Miller, and Ultimate Spider-Man, which was really letting me down. And that was the point that I really started getting into indie books, which is most of what I read at this point. And so I feel really conflicted because Spider-Man is a character that I really care about. And this is a book that I've had historically a lot of problems reading.
But it's on not the other hand, Spider-Man.
Oh, it's not that it's not the right Spider-Man, but we can talk about this more later. But really, ultimately, my point is, it's not necessarily a book that I love or even like that much, but I feel like it sits at a very influential point in my personal canon.
Yeah, I feel the same way about the book. Joe, how did you originally become aware of Ultimate Spider-Man?
This I had not read. This
Wow.
is my initial reading of it. I had not read it before. I was aware of it. I was aware of there was this span when I wasn't reading comics, and that's when the Ultimates thing, the Ultimate Universe really started. And I had read the Ultimates before, and I just found it to be just complete and utter crap. So of course I associated Ultimate Spider-Man with that and Ultimate X-Men with that, and I'm softening as I get older, but so I just kind of avoided them and stuck in the circles I was kind of more aware of, or didn't have that association with. So and I mean, my initial impression of it, I'm definitely of two minds of it. I think that you make a very good point about the thing I like the most about it is when Peter is being a teenager.
Yeah.
And I think this would be a great title for like my daughter who's 12 would fucking eat this up. I think it's a great book for that age. There's not a lot of graphic violence in it. However, I have to say, having read this after reading Invincible, I found it lacking in a lot of ways.
I think if I had read it the other way around, I would have a lot more problems with the book now. But that is a great point that you make, though, about this is a good book for that age group, because a lot of kids they're reading the all ages Marvel books, like the kiddie stuff. And at some point they realize, this isn't the real Spider-Man.
Right.
You're holding back. I see those other Spider-Man books over there, and, they look cooler than this book that I'm reading now, and I want to read those.
Yeah.
And I have to tell them, I'm going to be honest, you're not going to enjoy this very much, because, one, it has 60 years of continuity that you're not really going to be, privy to, and two, they're not really set up to be awesome superhero stories for people that like superheroes. In a lot of ways, the 616 Marvel Universe is overly adult in its complication.
Absolutely.
It's not accessible for a lot of people. And this has changed now. I would say the Marvel Now stuff is much more accessible.
Marvel really has pivoted.
That has changed.
Years.
But when I was working at a comic book store, it was it was the Bendis era. It was Civil War to essentially what was the
Siege?
No, the one after that, Fear Itself.
Was that after Siege?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so. I
thought it was before.
Wait,
I think Fear
it
Itself
was
is
Dark
after.
Reign, wasn't it?
No, it was
before
Civil
Siege.
War, then it was Dark Reign.
Yeah. Then
Siege, then Fear Itself.
Okay,
I believe.
yeah,
So it was
yeah,
that
yeah.
era.
That makes sense.
And in that era, Spider-Man was overly complicated by Brand New Day was actually pretty decent to jump on at, but a lot of people were
post Brand New Day. I mean, I haven't. This is when I stopped reading Spider-Man. My understanding is that basically Brand New Day is bullshit, but then One More Day picks up immediately after
it's
that.
the other way around. One More Day is the story with Mephisto.
Oh,
yeah,
one
Brand
single
New
shot.
Day is
Brand New Day is after.
Then you're
Yeah.
right, and I have the names
And
backwards. But Dan Slott picks up on Brand New Day, and that is a perfect point to jump onto.
Yeah. So, Spider-Man has had good points to jump onto, but something that I think is really noteworthy about this book is it is a great teen book, and it doesn't talk down to teens in any way. It's not like, oh, here's a kiddie book for you guys. Like, this is just a great book. It's about it's about kids in high school, like having to deal with real high school shit. And on top of that, there are also superheroes.
Well, and
I would hesitate to say that this is a great book, but that is one of the better elements.
Yeah,
to
for
it.
teens though, it's hard for me to think of another superhero book I would hand them right away. Besides Invincible,
it's a great introduction to that world. You can't walk up to a 13-year-old and hand them Kraven's Last Hunt and be like, here. But this really, I think this is a great introduction to that world and to the character of Spider-Man. I don't know that I agree that it's real high school stuff. The high school stuff reads to me like
until you get to like issue 60 something, I agree with Chard.
Yeah, I think the high school stuff is really like the bullying and like the clickiness of high school and the like weird relationshipy stuff where it's like, oh, he's best friends with Mary Jane and now they're starting to have their like first, real relationships as adults, quote unquote, because that's kind of when kids, are that's when you actual relationship stuff that isn't like she's my girlfriend, we hold hands, and that stuff happens in high school for a lot of people for the first time, and so that I think that those elements of the book make it a really strong book for kids that age. And I think that when people come to me and they're like, and they're young and they're like, I've never read Spider-Man before, what should I read? This is one of the things that I will like tend to hand them at the beginning because it's like it's Ultimate Universe, so it's a little bit different, and they're it's not the 616. But if you're not interested in like tons of crossovers and stuff, like the first 30 or 40 issues of this feel pretty isolated from the rest of the Marvel Universe.
Yeah,
and that's kind of where my issue with the book begins. Is I think issues 1 and we've all kind of had done our initial thoughts, so I think we should maybe start to nitpick some of the things that are the problems of the book.
Can I go first?
Well, I think the issues 1 through 40 are awesome. I really, really enjoy the beginning part of this book, and 40 is the end of that first Venom story, and it's the 39 is where he's talking to Kurt Connors. I would have to
even say I think through Ultimate 6.
But which is a side story that happens in between. It's in the 40s.
Well, Ultimate 6 is part of the
49.
trades.
It is part of the trades, but it's not in the original numbering. And then I hate this book from issues 40 through 96.
I actually dropped very similar lines to you, which is what I was going to say.
Yeah.
My line is actually 35 to 85.
I hate it from about 35 till past 100.
You guys don't like the Venom stuff?
I'm less of a fan of the Venom stuff.
I thought it was pretty neat.
I like what they did with Gwen Stacy and the Clone Saga stuff. I thought that was good.
That's 98.
Yeah.
Or 97 is when he fights the Scorpion for the first time.
I think it starts getting better after 85, and it's the Ultimate Clone Saga that actually is the point where I say, okay, this is where it's getting good again.
That's how I feel about it.
See, and I could not be done with that quick enough.
Really?
But my big problem with this book is that I feel it's periods of Peter being this really kind of being Spider-Man, right? He's bantering. He's having these interesting things. He's kind of he's like dealing with his curfew and the fact that his girlfriend is jealous with the girl that lives with him.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And I'm like, this is good. This is like character building stuff. And all of a sudden I feel like they decide, it's time to have like a dark moment. We're just going to pull the same fucking thing out of the woodwork that we have the past 6 times and hammer Peter over his fucking head and have him absolutely unchanged by the experience.
There are some things that I really like about the Clone Saga, though, that work really well, I think. I think that his relationship with the Marvel Universe, the Ultimate Universe, is really solidified because of that. He turns to the Fantastic Four for help, and it's the first time that like a crossover happens in this book where it doesn't feel like editorially forced.
Well, and it doesn't happen in another fucking title either. Right. It actually happens in Spider-Man.
Yeah, and so he goes to the Fantastic Four for help, and the most touching moment of that book for me is that Aunt May has been hiding something from Peter, which is that she thinks his father is alive.
Right.
Because he came to her and was like, "Oh, don't tell Peter I'm still alive. I didn't kill your sister, I just didn't get on the plane." And we learned that that's not true, that this is just a clone of Peter that's been aged more rapidly, and the impact of Peter seeing his father alive again and like thinking that his family's going to be whole and then having that all taken away from him, I think is really strong. And I think that he doesn't walk out unchanged. I think that he's kind of broken from that point on. Is like he doesn't trust anybody
See,
anymore.
I don't think that's the breaking point for him. I think that's the point where things start to get better for him, because the whole thing through the mid-30s up through the mid-80s is basically him going through PTSD.
Yeah.
Like, his uncle was killed in this really horrific way. Like, he's having people die all around him. Gwen Stacy's dad.
Yeah.
The Kingpin is constantly fucking with him. Like, Aunt May is threatening to throw him out of the house. He's constantly afraid of getting fired. Like, there's a moment like around issue 80 where I actually was texting Joe as I was reading it, because I finished this weeks ahead of everybody else. And I was like, I can't fucking do this anymore. Like, it's so fucking sad. Like, he and Mary Jane are breaking up, and she's like, I am constantly afraid that somebody's going to kidnap me and I'm going to die, or that you're going to get into a fight and you're going to die. And like, just the thought that like, she's exactly right. Like, his story doesn't end on a happy note. It ends with him getting shot and then beaten to death.
Yeah.
And like, I just could not handle the fact that he was obviously traumatized and flipping out, and instead of anybody lending him a hand, everybody accuses him of things and just puts him through more shit. And it's like, this is a teenager who is obviously flipping out. He has had all of this shit happen to him. Why is no one helping him?
And that's the thing I really like about in the Clone Saga, when Nick Fury shows up with the Ultimates and all the Spider Slayers, and Peter's like, you built a bunch of Spider Slayers just in case a bunch of my clones came out to attack? And he's like, no, I built them to take you down because I thought that you were going to be a supervillain. All this shit has happened to you, and I thought you were going to go bad, and I thought I was going to have to put you down.
And see, that's the thing,
and
is
like,
that's the moment where the series starts to get better for me.
Right.
Most of all because Aunt May finds out that he is Spider-Man.
Right.
And
then she flips around.
Yeah.
And he suddenly starts getting the support that he actually needs.
Absolutely. I think that that's good, but I do think that there is a part of Peter that's like totally kind of broken inside because of his, because of the family
I do
shit that
agree with
happens.
you, but it's horrible for me to have to read that.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I want out of a superhero story, is to watch the character get tormented endlessly.
Right.
Like,
Well,
I actually put a note down, because I actually took notes on this book for the first time. Peter is a scapegoat in like the classical sense of this thing that blame is put upon to absolve everyone else of their sins.
Well, the whole city of New York blames him for tons of stuff. And that's spearheaded by J. Jonah Jameson,
who actually has one of the more interesting character arcs.
Right.
I
And that's
agree.
something I wanted to get into later. Like, one of the reasons why I like the later stuff once we pass the Ultimate Clone Saga is like, he gets Aunt May on his side. He flips J. Jonah Jameson into being one of his biggest supporters.
Yeah.
Like, he actually really starts building a superhero persona as Spider-Man, as somebody that people respect and look up to, and the cops are on his side.
Yeah.
And he really becomes a hero.
Yeah.
For 5 minutes.
For 5 minutes, and then he dies.
I think
Which is the hardest part
the
about this
strong
book.
part about it's hilarious to me, because the strongest part about this book to me is also the source of some of my biggest problems with it. I agree with you. There's a moment when Nick Fury is surrounding his house and the Fantastic Four are out there, and they're like, we're not going to let you take him. So, and he's like, I'll arrest you. And they're like, we're the Fantastic Four. We don't care. Like, you're not taking him away. There are some great moments in the Clone Saga, but I feel it's punctuated constantly by, I never feel like, I feel like there needs to be something novel about that, and I feel like it's just trotting out the same villains again because they have this strong emotional connection to Peter, and it's something that makes him feel bad about himself.
What I like about the Clone Saga is that none of the original villains, like the Green Goblin's not in it,
Dr. Octopus.
The Jackal's not in it. There's no Ben Reilly.
Yeah, but
I guess does one of them call themselves Kane?
No, but he looks like Kane, sort of.
There is a Ben Reilly, just a smaller persona of him.
It's
Well,
not,
it's a black doctor who has
Yeah.
like nothing to do with Peter Parker.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's
No,
just.
but he is one of the creators of the clones.
right.
Right.
He works with Otto,
Yeah.
and he
But
also
he's not a
created
clone of
Carnage.
Peter, is
And
right.
that's the
Yeah,
moment.
no,
The moment
it's
when
true.
Otto comes out and he's like, "Ah, yes, you can't touch me. I've been working for the government, and I did this all to fuck with you, and I hate you, and I hope you." And it was just like that kind of killed it all for me because the intent of that was so like I felt. And this is my problem. I don't feel like a lot of the moments that are supposed to have emotional impact, including Peter's death, have them because I feel like I'm being manipulated by Bendis.
Yeah.
I don't feel like they're natural. I don't feel like they come from the story. I feel like Bendis is going, oh, we can really use this relationship to make people feel bad. And I never feel when a lot of this, and this is my thing, in Invincible, there are moments where I'm fucking gripping the pages so tight that I'm afraid I'm going to rip my fucking trade.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm there.
Yeah.
And there were moments like that in here.
Right.
But so many more of them, I just felt like I was being hit over the head to feel bad for Peter and to feel like... And I just, at that point, I'm just like, whatever, dude.
I
I'm
think
not done
that
with you.
scene with Otto and Nick Fury took place in the wrong setting and took place too quickly. Because something I really like about that fight is... the reason that Otto is so against Nick Fury is because Nick Fury melted his arms, which happens like sort of off panel, right? So the battle should be between Otto and Nick Fury, and it weirdly becomes a battle about Peter. And that's the part I don't like.
And I do like the part where Fury's like, no, I am going to just leave him here with you. And I felt like that was pretty good.
Yeah.
But then I still felt like that was just... I felt like the Clone Saga had a potential to be a really powerful moment.
Yeah.
And because of the manipulation, I just kind of...
Well, I
also-
feel like I was right back in 2003 when I dropped this book, which is that it is at its strongest when it adheres to the 616 continuity the least.
Yes.
Every time they try and like... It's like, oh, this is our version of the Venom saga. This is our version of whatever thing from the 616. This is our Green Goblin. Like, that's when the book is at its least good. And when they're doing things like putting Peter together with Kitty Pryde.
Yeah.
And specifically moving away from what was going on in 616, that is when the book is at its...
Absolutely.
There are
and it's what I think my problem is with the New 52.
Yeah.
Like, the New 52 should be more like the Ultimate Universe, not in style, because it is that kind of like grim darker thing that shouldn't be, but in terms of getting away from their old continuity and doing new stories.
Well, that's why I was really excited about the New 52 at first. But within the first weeks of announcing it, they were like, well, Batman's continuity is not going to be rebooted.
And
Green Lantern's continuity is not going to be rebooted. And I was like, well, fucking don't care anymore.
Right.
Because what I
Exactly.
wanted was a Crisis on Infinite Earths type moment where it's like everything that came before, almost none of it matters.
Yeah, like when they did Crisis on Infinite Earths, it's like, we're going to do a brand new origin for Green Lantern. We're going to do a brand new origin for Superman. We're going to do a brand new origin for Batman. Well, the Flash is a new character, so he gets a new origin because he's a different guy. Like, it was like clearing the board off, whole new thing, and they didn't do that in 52, which they should have.
No, I totally agree.
And that's what the Ultimate Universe was, except for the fact that Marvel kept their old continuity.
And what
too.
I think happened is, we were talking about DC again, but they didn't have the balls to tell people like Jeff Johns, like, hey, all your stuff, it was awesome, but fuck it, start over. We're getting a new writer on Green Lantern, because he was selling so many books for them.
And that's what it was.
And that's the problem, is it was a money grab.
Absolutely.
In every sense of the way, the New 52 was a money grab, and it didn't... I don't know that it's really paying off, and I guess we'll see in the future, but it didn't do it for me in any way. Like, there was nothing exciting going on about it for me as a comic book reader.
I think monetarily, New 52 did work. I can't count the number of times in the last 3 months where I have said, I'm a comic book reviewer on a nationally syndicated podcast, and they're like, oh, have you been reading such and such from the New 52? It's so good. I'm like,
and this is what I think that the New 52 brought a ton of new readers into DC by replacing all of their old readers with new readers. Like, they didn't get more readers. They just got rid of all of their
I think
old
they
ones.
solidified people that were already reading them.
Well, there's so many
I
people.
kind of agree with Joe. Like,
And that's the thing, though, is if they
I think
still-
they actually lost a bunch of readers.
Oh, I agree.
did-
That's what I think they did.
Yeah,
well, I
pretty
think
much
that they solidified their hold on a certain type. Of
yeah.
reader.
Yeah.
It's not that
And
they have
they
more
got
readers. It's
new
that
readers.
the few readers they have are buying more books.
But again, the
And
new
so that's why
52
I'm saying is I'm not sure that...
Well, that's why I say we'll have to wait and see
Yeah.
because we'll never probably know these
Well,
numbers.
but,
But
I
I
mean,
think that
this
the
is-
new 52.
I think monetarily it is working for them.
Oh,
what
yeah.
does-
Oh, no, it totally
sucks
is.
for
it
comic
has-
book readers.
But-
it has fewer books selling as well as they did before the new 52, though, because
Yeah.
like Superman and Batman and stuff like that are selling really well, but all of their other books are selling.
And that's why
dog
more and
shit.
more of their books are Superman and Batman.
right?
Yeah.
But
And-
I really shouldn't have brought up DC.
well, no,
It's-
it's fine. But
I agree with Toby completely.
Yeah.
This is my and this
Thank you.
this hits on the biggest problem I have with this book.
That's a
this,
soundbite for you.
Yeah.
This is. I know this is momentous. Somewhere a small
that's
island
going to be
just
Toby's
exploded.
ringtone from now on.
This really was an opportunity to do some really cool shit and
Yeah.
maybe play with some super Spider-Man villains that maybe didn't have the fucking press of like Venom, because really I don't care about Venom. Venom
Right.
was played out years ago.
Agreed.
Like
Well, guys like what's the bug guy? It's a Firefly.
the
Beetle.
Beetle.
no, Beetle and
Firefly
like,
is Batman.
Okay,
Shocker,
whatever.
Shocker.
The Beetle
I, like,
shows up and he's cool, and I've
Yeah.
never said that before.
Yeah,
ever,
right?
out loud. So
I thought
like,
Shocker was really kind of
Yeah.
interesting having him there. But I mean, Green Goblin. Do we really need another Green Goblin?
Well,
the answer
Well,
is
like
no. We
the,
don't.
What I
the
like-
whole Green Goblin thing wasn't that bad to me, except for the fact that they kept bringing him back.
Yeah.
The one that I had the problem with was the Hobgoblin,
yeah.
because that only happened because of the 616 continuity.
Yeah,
Right.
no, absolutely.
Like that was not organic to the story in any way.
No.
It was
I
if you read Ultimate 6, though.
I like. What
I
I like-
actually skipped Ultimate
What I
Six.
like about it, though, is it's just a continuation of the fallout from the initial, like, 20 issues. Like, those initial 20 issues set up so much in the universe that I'm okay with the fact that there's a Green Goblin, and I'm okay with the fact that there is an Dr. Octopus, because he resolves those issues quickly. My problem is they keep coming back.
Right.
Yes.
And those are... Every time someone from the 616 universe shows up, it doesn't feel organic. And that's why
No.
issues like 40 through 97, they're like every single issue is a team up. Every single one is like, oh, now Wolverine's in the book. Oh, now Bobby Drake's in the book.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's like, oh, now the Human Torch is in the book. And I fucking hate it. Like,
I actually
it's not
kind
a
of like the
Spider-Man
fact
book
that
anymore.
Johnny Storm and Bobby Drake were living in the house
well,
with
because
him.
That's
the
way later, though.
Spider
Okay, yeah.
Friends.
Yeah, that's way
Dude,
later.
Spider-
Yeah.
I mean,
And I'm okay with that. And
Yeah.
then Lizzie Allen basically becomes the other
Firestar.
Firestar.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
like I think that stuff was okay. But what I really hate is the team up stuff in the middle.
Yeah.
It's like every
I
single
did.
issue.
I have to say.
And Deadpool shows up and is
Oh, God,
stupid.
it's fucking
And
awful.
God,
everybody
that
shows-
crossover with the X-Men was really
and the
good.
Silver
bad.
Sable shows up and
But-
it's stupid. And
yes.
Moon Knight shows up and
And
it's
it's
stupid. They're all
stupid.
dumber
that
versions.
whole, was it the Ultimate Warriors, where it's like Moon Knight,
and
Iron
Ultimate
Fist,
Knights.
Ultimate
Knights.
Knights.
Yeah,
I
which
hate all
is
that
just
Doctor
not
Strange.
very good.
It's a shitty Doctor
very
Strange.
good.
It's a
Yeah, it's
shitty
But the
Moon Knight.
thing that
It's like-
really-
They make it seem like it's the 616 Doctor Strange's son.
yeah.
Yes, it is, because he was one of the ones who could travel dimensions like Mysterio does in Spider-Man.
Yeah, and
There is actually a special continuity for the people who can go between the two universes.
Yeah, but he's a dickhead.
Yeah,
And I
he
love
is.
Doctor
And a
Strange.
shitty
no,
wizard.
Doctor Strange
And
is
he's
awesome.
a shitty
Yeah,
Doctor Strange. And it's like
agree.
and I love Moon Knight more than anyone should ever love Moon Knight.
I mean,
And
that statement of itself is more than anybody should ever say about Moon
and
Knight.
he fucking sucks in the Ultimate Universe.
Although,
he
wait.
dies all the time.
Somebody's getting ready to write Moon. I think somebody is getting ready to write Moon Knight
They're
that I'm excited
relaunching
about.
Okay.
Moon Knight, but
There
yeah,
are
I
good
don't
Moon
remember
Knight
who it is.
books. The David Finch Moon Knight, that's really good. And I liked Bendis' new Moon Knight. I thought that was great. What's really sad about that is he set that up and then was like, yeah, I did my Moon Knight. Now someone else take over. And Marvel was like, yeah, no, we don't want anybody else to do it. And just let it die. And I was
Right.
like, what? No, he set him up on the West Coast and like moved him out of like all the shitty
No
continuity.
superhero can
I don't
survive
know.
on the West Coast.
I
Well,
like...
Hawkeye survived. Living Lightning's still around somewhere,
Yeah,
isn't he?
somewhere.
Well,
And Hawkeye
hopefully-
only became interesting again when he moved back to New York.
Hopefully, with the DC's move to the West Coast, that'll die off.
Right? God, we can only hope.
And that's my problem is like
Well,
all
that's
these
the-
616
I'm talking specifically in
characters.
the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
No,
all
I
these
was thinking-
616 characters show up as like, hey, look, here's our version of this character.
It's
Here's our
ultimate
version of this.
blah, blah, blah.
I don't fucking like any of them.
I have to say that there's an issue where Peter and Wolverine like switch
Yeah.
bodies and a whole Freaky
I
Friday
fucking
thing.
hated
I don't like
that
it.
one.
I actually thought that was pretty fucking hilarious. Just because I think normally when somebody throws Wolverine into a book and does like a team up, he's always like, do I play by my own rules? I don't need you. And then you team him with somebody like Spider-Man who's like, Wolverine, you can't go around killing people. And I like the fact that he was pretty much like, get me out of your big, stupid, smelly body. I hate you.
I
You're
also
ruining
like
my
that
life.
he keeps like popping the claws.
Yeah,
accidentally.
like,
Like,
yeah,
he cuts
just-
his own finger off. He cuts like 3 phones in half.
I just
and
loved-
he's got his hands up in the cops and like put the claws away. And he's like, I don't know how.
I don't know how to do it.
Like there are funny moments in that book, but it just
I hate body swap
it
episodes.
felt
They're
pandering.
overdone.
Like all of those issues, like every time they introduce that, and where he goes with the X-Men to the island.
Genosha.
No,
Krakoa.
It's Krakoa.
which is the island. If you know anything about the 616 X-Men, and Eric could tell you the story better than I could. So
I
wish he
can
was on
tell
the
you
show.
what it
But
is.
In the
It's-
vignettes that Eric
Yeah,
makes,
it's what happens is they go to the island, the original X-Men team, and they can't escape the island.
And
but
so-
Cyclops does. He gets away, and then they build a new X-Men
Yeah,
team.
it's giant
around
size
him.
X-Men number 1.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Krakoa
And they go-
lets Cyclops go, and Professor X gathers
That
the backup
may be
X-Men team.
retcon that it lets him go. I think that happens.
No, that's in
Genesis.
Giants.
Oh, is it?
That's in
Well,
Giant
what's
Size.
retconned is that the
There's
team that
another
you see
team,
is
yeah.
not the first one that Xavier sent.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and
I
that's
like that
that's what
story,
happens,
but-
and that was retarded,
I
and
hate that
Deadpool
he's
was
on the
awful,
Deadpool,
and
and that-
Mojo was retarded,
I
and that
just-
was stupid.
I didn't like any of that stuff. And what's sad is there's really interesting things happening in the background, like him
Yes.
dating Kitty Pryde. Super interesting.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of interesting high school stuff, and so I have to read those issues. And then it's like, and then Black Cat shows up, and I'm like, fucking just turn the pages.
And that was
can't turn the
another thing
pages
I
fast
liked.
enough.
I liked that
I actually
interaction
did
when
like
she
that
when
Black
she
Cat.
Okay, I
finds
like-
out he's a kid, and then she's like, "Oh my god, you're a fucking kid," and she fucking pukes
on
all
him.
over the
That's
rooftop.
great.
That's hilarious.
But what I don't like is like, oh, and now Elektra and Black Cat are fighting, and the Kingpin's
stupid.
got this plan from Black Cat's dad was an assassin. It's like, I don't care about
I
that.
will
I
say-
like the character of the Black Cat in this series,
Yeah.
and all the other stuff surrounding that is shit.
Yeah.
My favorite thing about this book is his banter with the Kingpin, though. That is that is like some of his
when
best
he pulls
writing.
out the joke list and he's just reading them off as
Yeah.
the Kingpin is like trying to murder him.
I like
Yeah.
it too when Kingpin's at like a fancy restaurant and it like is a panel of him alone eating alone.
Oh,
in a
and he's
fancy
there
restaurant.
reading the
and then
paper?
He sits, and then it like cuts to Spider-Man who's like reading the paper and
That's-
like
yeah.
fucking with him. Like I like all that stuff. So I think actually Kingpin is one of the better put together villains.
It's
in
kind of
this
a
story.
shame what happens to him.
Well, and this brings, see, we can talk about all the shit that happens between 35 and 98 or
Yeah.
whatever, because when this book really jumped the shark for me, and I began to, up until this point, I was like annoyed, but I didn't actively hate it. That doesn't happen for me until after fucking Ultimatum,
Yeah.
and you come in 6 months later, and he's fucking dating Gwen Stacy, and there's a panel where Mary Jane is like, I thought you said she was like a sister to you, and Peter says, I never said that, which is fucking unmitigated bullshit, because he totally fucking does say it.
Yeah.
And it's fucking stupid.
That's absolutely a teen thing to
No,
say.
and I hate when you jump back in and he's dating Gwen.
It's
I hate
fucking
that
awful.
stuff.
That
It's
is
fucking
actually
awful,
really bad.
and I'm going to be
Issues.
honest. I read those 15 issues in 10 minutes because I skimmed them, because
Oh, I
I
read
did
them
not
so
give
fast.
a fuck.
That's
I was reading
during
those as
the
they came out.
Ultimate Comic Spider-Man renumbering.
Yep,
Yeah.
1 through
Yeah.
50.
Well, no, it's
It's
still,
still Ultimate
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, but it's Ultimate Spider-Man 1 through 50.
Whatever.
Volume 2, 1 through 50.
I fucking hate that arc, not necessarily because of the story, but because I cannot stand the artist who does
art's
it.
not that
It's David LaFuente,
yeah.
and his art just drives me absolutely
It's like bad manga
Worse
art.
than the art, though, is the coloring in that for me.
The
Because
coloring
the
is
first
awful.
130 issues were colored by a comics coloring company that was like some of the pioneers of digital coloring. And I remember reading those books when I first got those and being like, holy shit, comic book coloring has come a long way. That was the first book I remember being like, what the fuck happened to the technology? Because it is like insane. Like he's climbing out of. I remember specifically one panel. He's thrown. I think it's Carnage or somebody into a furnace, and he's crawling out of the like the giant tower furnace thing, and the hues of red and like
there's
like so many
great.
like
There's 16 different versions of red, 32 different versions of orange,
which is the only good fucking part of that, because Carnage, and I hope that Carnage is the worst character ever.
They never call it Carnage too, which I like because it's not really Carnage.
Because it's already retarded, and they don't want to make it even more retarded.
The Carnage origin in the 616 universe is that it's part of the symbiote suit that breaks off.
And it infects Cletus Cassidy was his fucking name, and he was a psychopath,
and he was Eddie Brock's cellmate.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
so anyway,
exactly.
What I like about this one is it's them trying to recreate the clone suit, and it goes wrong. And I like a lot of that stuff. And I do think it's weird that it becomes Gwen Stacy. And I think it's weird when they just randomly can suck the symbiote out of Eddie. It goes on to Eddie Brock again.
Yeah,
he takes it away from her, and then she's just a normal not dead
whatever
girl.
happens to that? Can I just because the Beetle sucks up Eddie Brock's symbiote and then flies away saying something about Doom, and you never fucking hear about it.
This is actually something I wanted to talk about, because I was going to jump on earlier when Chard mentioned the Beetle. My biggest complaint about this book, and it drove me fucking off the wall.
Up the wall?
Yes. Off the wall insanity.
Off the wall.
Is all the fucking crossovers where they don't, in the single issues or in the trade, tell you what to read to find out what happens.
Yeah, well, I didn't...
Well, and just the sheer amount that happens off the page.
Oh, yeah. Well
yes,
actually,
but see, if it actually said, if Beetle flies away and it says, to see what happens next, read Ultimate Fantastic Four this trade,
right.
I could choose whether or not to read it. Most of the time, these crossovers, I wouldn't give a fuck. But some of those moments, I really wanted to know what happened, and I could not fucking figure out where those storylines were coming from.
Well,
and I even found out after I finished the fucking book that I have the trade Ultimate Power, which is where Nick Fury disappears from for those 80 issues he's gone. Yeah. I have that fucking book, and it never once told me what book to go read.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to read that.
Well, it makes you miss the editor's note. We've talked about this a ton.
Yeah, they banned that at Marvel for a while. They were like, you're not allowed to use cadmium yellow.
Yeah.
Because it was so associated with a certain period in comics where it's editor's box, narration panel.
Yeah, and so they got rid of the editor's note, which would have been really helpful in this book. But also, there's a lot of shit in this book that doesn't even happen in comic books. Did you know that the Ultimate Spider-Man video game is in this continuity?
I did not know that.
So it's on the GameCube and PS2, I think, and it's a decent game, but it's where Spider-Man meets the Hulk for the first time. And in Ultimates, you know how Hulk has destroyed the city? Yeah, that happened in the Ultimate Spider-Man video game, which was written by Bendis.
Huh.
Never made into a comic.
That happened in Ultimates, too.
No, at the beginning of Ultimates, they brought in Banner for the first time, and they're like, remember what he did to Manhattan?
That was in Ultimates.
No, it
the
was
first trade.
No, the second time.
I read the first few issues of Ultimates, and one of the first things that they deal with is Banner, he's trying to go kill Freddie Prinze Jr. in Brooklyn or something.
That happens, but that's not the time that they're talking about.
Okay.
That he does go crazy, and he sees his girl. He sees Betty on a date with somebody, and he's sliding down the side of a building and punching stuff. That's later. When they first catch him, they're like, well, he's a villain. People don't trust the Hulk because of what happened in Manhattan. It's an offhanded thing. I didn't know that actually happened in something else. And as far as I know, that's where that happens. It's where he meets the Hulk for the first time. It's where he meets Doc Connors as the Lizard for the first time.
In the Ultimate Spider-Man one, when it references it, it's actually about the Ultimates one. because that came out right before that arc.
Yeah, but that's still not the first time that he met the Hulk. Because he later is like,
oh, no,
I've
I'm
met
not
the
talking
Hulk.
about when he's talking about when he met the Hulk,
Yeah.
but when he's talking about the Hulk destroying
'Cause
Manhattan,
he doesn't meet the
that
Hulk
was
in the Ultimates, and he doesn't meet the Hulk any other time in this book, except for that one time where he's like, "Oh, we've met before."
he did in
remember?
in
Ultimate 6.
Ultimate Marvel Team Up,
Okay.
which is also the first time he meets Doc Connors. In they reference it, yeah.
For a
and
series that's supposed to be getting away from
first time-
continuity.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, it's
Way too much
mired
fucking
in
continuity.
it.
That's
Yes.
another one of my huge
And
problems with
this is why I fucking hate this. It never
Yeah.
tells you where to look, because the first time he meets Doc Connors is an Ultimate Marvel Team Up.
That's right.
Very next issue is the first time he meets Wolverine, and then the one after that is the first time he meets Kitty Pryde.
And the fact
Yeah.
that it's never referenced in the comic, it's confusing.
It's super confusing, and they should be in the trades.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
I agree.
And if you again,
Or
this
better
is-
yet, you should just fucking have it happen in the goddamn book so that I don't have to buy 5 to understand what's going on in the one I want to read.
Well, and that's one thing. One of my greatest arguments for digital comics is like there should just be what should I read next, and they can just put them in any order they want, and it doesn't matter that they're not numbered properly because you just go to next issue, and it just is now
Yeah.
you're reading Ultimate Spider-Man, and you'd never fucking know because it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
right?
so when the Beetle flies away, you go next issue, and it's where he appears in Fantastic Four.
Yeah, and you can be like, oh, I don't want to read this. Go back to Ultimate Spider-Man or whatever. You know, like the editor's note would have fixed it. There's a lot of things that would have like helped that, and that's one of my biggest problems with this book is it's just like
So
complicated.
I
much
would have
shit
really liked to
happens.
see the shit where it gets really interesting, and I can't lie. Those 15 issues after the reboot, they kill the rest of the book for me.
Well, actually, it's funny. One of the other notes that I have is issue 15 of that series. I practically fucking jizzed myself because I hate LaFuente's art that much. And that's the issue where Sara Pichelli first comes in as a fill-in artist.
Right.
And she is one of my favorite artists right now.
Yeah.
And like just the sudden whiplash of difference between LaFuente and Pichelli, like I was like, oh my God, I was
But then
so
LaFuente comes
excited.
back.
It took me for the rest of the series. They switch back and forth.
Okay,
Like
because
she keeps doing more and more
there
fill-in
was
issues.
one somewhere in that 1 through 15. There's also a
There's
manga
an
artist
actual
for
manga artist where the
two
art also
issues,
appears.
like by
Takashi something or other.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that issue 15
'cause I actually
is issue
really
150,
like
and they
LaFuente.
both are on that issue along with Bagley coming back and a few other people.
Well, Bagley's was the flashbacks.
Yes.
Well, and even I love Scotty Young,
But-
but when Scotty Young stuff shows up in the Thor flashback to like, should we train Peter Parker?
Oh
I
yeah.
was like, this is not what Thor, like, this isn't how Thor
But then,
thinks. This is, like, it was weird.
Issue 151 is all Pichelli, and then 152 with LaFuente and Pichelli both credited on the cover.
Yeah.
And they kind of go back and forth, and then she ultimately becomes the full-time artist on the Miles Morales
Yeah,
stuff.
Ultimate Comics, Spider-Man #1.
But like, there are not words to express how excited I was when I
Yeah.
hit that issue.
Well, and we should talk about the art just in general because there are some amazing fucking artists on this book. Like, I love Bagley's stuff.
So, okay,
He is such an interesting
Bagley,
artist
yeah.
because he's the last Marvel artist that was found through the Marvel. You remember they used to do these Marvel kits that they would like send away pages,
Yeah.
and you could buy them in the store, and you could draw.
I don't remember
You
that.
could draw in them and then send them back.
it
to
was like a
Marvel.
find an
It
artist
was
kind
like
of
the fun-
thing.
Yeah, and he was the last artist that they found through that. And he's also like just one of the fastest artists out there. Like he draws pages insanely fast. That's why they tapped him for Trinity, was because he could keep up with the weekly schedule of a comic, which is in fucking.
I
No, it really
definitely
is.
have a hard time thinking of, like, when I think of this series, I think of his art. Because, I mean,
Yeah.
he and Bendis, I think, are, like, the longest or second longest run as a single creative team
Yeah.
on a Marvel book.
Yeah.
Yes, second,
And they broke a
only
record,
to-
And I think that someone is like closing in on that. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're Yeah.
But like, I mean, it's 133 issues that they're working on together.
No, it's only 111.
111.
Because then Stuart Immonen takes over.
Right.
Also fucking awesome. And
Oh god,
I had problems with him at first because I was so used to the way that
Exactly.
Bagley drew those characters, and the fact that he does kind of same face with not with the characters in the book looking the same, but him drawing characters like he draws other characters.
Right.
Like Mary Jane Watson looks exactly like Boom Boom in Next Wave.
Right.
Like same face, same hair.
Yeah.
And that kind of drove me a little bit nuts. And it took me until like probably like 125, 130 before I was really used to it. And then, of
Right.
course, he left.
Right, and that was my problem the first time was I was like, oh man, Bagley's leaving? No. And then like Immonen got on and I was like, eh. But this time I just jumped to the Immonen stuff to just read it out of, because I was like, oh, well, I'll just skip ahead and read it because I've already read all this stuff. And just jumping to the Immonen stuff, it was awesome. Like I really love the fluidity that he draws with, and just, if you want to read great Immonen, I would probably recommend Next Wave first, but this has some great Immonen art in it, and I think that it's really solid. So I think up until the volume 2 of Ultimate Spider-Man, the art is really, really strong.
It really is.
And then it just takes a giant nosedive into the ground for me, and
See-
I hate that stuff.
Okay, for me it was that I really liked Bagley. I really liked how clean his art was. When I would think of the Ultimate Universe, like I would think of Bagley and
Yeah.
how great. And to me, I would even call it iconic because
Yeah.
that's what
For
I think
Ultimate
of.
Spider-Man, definitely.
And then Immonen took over, and at first I hated it, and I was even talking to Toby, and he's like, I did it first too, but it got better. And then, what do you know, like 2 issues later, I was in love with Immonen's art.
Yeah.
And then LaFuente came in. I hated the first 3 pages, saw Gwen Stacy for the first time, and I fell in love because she's the most adorable thing
Chibi
ever.
Gwen Stacy.
He's like super chubby,
Way-
and, adorable.
Everybody's
Right.
just like way too cute
They
and
are.
cartoon.
Sparkly,
No,
happy.
and-
You know what it
And
reminds
the
me?
Kingpin looks like a giant baby.
It reminds me of Magical Truth Saying Bastard Spidey or Spider from Transmet. The way
Yeah,
they draw
Spidey.
the way they draw him in Transmet
Yeah.
with the really super cute chibi
Yeah.
anime style. I couldn't stomach it after a
And,
while,
like,
but it was partially because
I can't tell Cade that he's wrong for liking it. I just personally hate it. It drives me insane.
I did hate a lot of it, and a lot of the things that Toby pointed out about LaFuente's art, I absolutely hated.
Yeah.
But some of it I really, really liked.
I think the coloring is really off-putting for me. There's lots of weird highlights and kind of stupid stuff going on in there. But what I
it just
really
makes me
like-
angry looking at it.
I like the design of Mary Jane and Gwen Stacy and the reporter
Jessica Jones.
and Kitty Pryde. I like all their designs. It makes me want to read a book where he writes about an all-girls high school or something.
Yeah.
Oh
Those are
no,
the
it's
only
just
designs that
it's
I like.
terrible.
Yeah,
I don't care for the art either.
Kitty
Honestly, I
Pryde
feel sick
and
looking
the-
at it. I can't look at this
No, and
anymore.
I hate that stuff. It's
Kitty
so hard to read.
Kitty Pryde and her whole cloak outfit. I love the way
I
that
like her
LaFuente
design on that.
did that. I love Gwen Stacy. Hated
his stupid
Peter. I
pumpkin
hated
head.
Johnny Storm.
Pumpkinhead.
Iceman, I actually thought had a couple of moments where he looked like a punk kid who whines a lot because that's fucking Iceman for you.
Yeah, there's some stuff in that.
I didn't like that Kong and Bobby looked the same. Though,
just-
I mean, Kong was only in there for
But
2
the way he
issues.
draws Kong is fucking atrocious.
That's
Yeah.
that's
With the
true.
weird, is that the
It's-
one when he has the weird purple mohawk?
yeah, and
It
the,
was hard for me
tartan
to-
pants.
It was hard for me to muster the hatred for the art because I seriously, if Brian Michael Bendis had been standing in front of me as I was reading those, I would have pummeled him.
It doesn't feel like Bendis at all.
Everything
I mean, that was charming about the series before
is
is
gone.
now gone.
And it kills it. It totally fucking kills the series for me.
Oh, me too. And
I read. So I stayed up last night. I get up at 6 a.m. during the weekday with my kid to get her ready for school.
Yeah.
And I stayed up last night to finish it. And I read issue 160 at 12:30. And I closed. I closed my iPad and I felt nothing.
Yeah.
I felt fucking nothing. And I was reading comics during the death of Superman. I read that as it fucking came out. I read Nightfall. I've read fucking Emerald Twilight. I've read Crisis on Infinite Earths. I even fucking Infinite Crisis. Like, I felt something. There's a point where, like, Superboy Prime cuts Puma's head off or something, or
he
whatever.
punches somebody's face.
Like, and I mean, at least I felt a little something, and Peter fucking dies, and I felt nothing.
Yes.
Because it happens in such an anticlimactic way.
And I absolutely hated it because, like, I read those last 10 issues in single issue form, and starting with, like, 53 or whatever, and it's like, build up to the death of Spider-Man, and you're just like, why? Like,
you know what
that
it
would
reminds me of more than
had
anything
so
else?
much more power if, like, it was a thing that wasn't being built up to.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, if I was reading a trade and I just saw the title, like, you know, the end of Spider-Man, I wouldn't know what's happening, and I could read it and actually feel something at the end.
Well, it was such a money grab, too, because I remember all of those issues sold out.
Yeah.
Like, all of them.
Well,
It was like, the death of Spider-Man, we gotta buy it. And it's like, fuck that. I hate the collectors that will go and buy all that shit, because it's stupid, you know? They're just buying into the industry hype, and it ruins the story.
Well, it reminded me more than anything else of the death of the 10th Doctor in Doctor Who. The episode's called The End of Time. And, like, he, like, suffers this fatal wound from, like, radiation or something. And he's like, oh, I'm dying. Watch me as I'm, like, falling over myself dying. And he is literally dying for, like, 20 minutes. There's, like, 15 different scenes that he's in where he's visiting people as he's dying.
God. Yeah, I don't.
You can stop holding your ears, Cade. I mean, you know that he dies because there's a new doctor. And I did not reveal any.
I'm
plot
still
details
watching
about the
Tennant's
show.
run.
Okay.
Well, thankfully you'll be done with that soon.
Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
I actually probably won't because I hate David Tennant, so I haven't been
I was
watching
definitely
it.
pretty sick of his run by the end of it, and could not wait for him to finish dying.
I
Please.
just feel like David Tennant is the Timothy Dalton of David Tennant is the Timothy Dalton of the Doctors. I think he could have done a much better job had he gotten a much better showrunner at that point.
I don't want to talk about Doctor Who because we could fill a fucking episode.
Well, I have
gonna
two
talk-
points that I wanted to still talk about.
With Spider-Man?
Yeah, with Spider-Man.
Yeah, I have tons more to say.
But the thing that I wanted to talk about is, actually, since we were just on him a minute ago, is Kong.
Yeah.
Because I was actually really bothered by the arc that his character has. Because he starts out as a bully and like antithetical to Peter, and kind of dumb, but like he has kind of that moment of intelligence.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, he just gets kind of like retrofitted, and like suddenly he's their friend, and they're hanging out, and like nobody gives him shit about it. And like then he starts. It's so weird and seems like just completely out of context, and it really bothered me.
I feel like it's done. I feel like there's mentions to him being Flash's kind of like butt boy or whipping boy.
Yeah, but they never spend the time on the page redeeming his character and reintroducing him. It's just like at a certain moment, it's like, okay, I guess we're hanging out with Kong now.
I feel like that's
Spider-Man, and I think that could have gone more interesting directions.
Yeah.
It really could have.
Because Kong, like, sees a guy who's doing everything in his power to be heroic, and Kong has done nothing but bully people all his life. Like that could have been a huge turning point in Kong's life.
Yeah, like,
and it doesn't happen.
And
they've done
kind of did though with Peter Parker going to Kong for a place to stay.
Yeah,
I did really like that.
I did too, and I thought that's when his story could have become interesting.
Yeah,
well, I was going to say they've done a lot of really interesting things with Flash Thompson in the 616 because he had a very similar arc where he starts out as a bully and then becomes Spider-Man's biggest fan, and he is now Venom.
Is he still Venom?
Yeah,
Yes.
he's still Venom. And it seemed like they were kind of trying to do a similar thing with Kong in this series, but they never put in any of the legwork.
Yeah, I agree.
Ultimate Flash Thompson kind of pisses me off because this was back when I was practically living at a comic shop, and Marvel had been hinting left and right that Flash was trying to get Peter's attention because he wanted to come out of the closet as a gay guy. And then and there was like there were all these hints about it, and they were starting to build up to it, and then nothing.
Well,
they just like completely dropped the ball, and they were like, okay, we're going to get way too much controversy for this, and backed off.
And the weirdest part of the story, too, is after Gwen's death, when they're like, oh, you liked Gwen. And it's like, that came out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah, no.
It would have been nice to have seen any part of that. There's a lot of stuff that happens in this book.
Well, it would have been nice
right
if Gwen was an actual character and not just a fucking walking trope.
I love Gwen. She's really
I don't like her at the beginning, but she grows on me over time. I
guess
like what they
maybe
did
a
with her,
little
and I
bit.
like that she was different than 616 Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, well, then again, what we were talking about earlier is like it's interesting when they do stuff that is
Right.
similar to 616.
I just feel like she's never fully realized. And I feel that way about, like, Aunt May doesn't really even become interesting to me until after Peter tells her that he's Spider-Man. I feel like the only reason...
Well, even in Amazing Spider-Man, I never felt that until he told her.
Well, I have to preface this by saying something. I hate Aunt May. She is one of the most useless characters in comic books. I feel like she was there, and I feel like for a majority of Ultimate Spider-Man, and I feel in the Spider-Man mythos in general, she's there to as we can always throw Aunt May into there if we really need to inject some melodrama, and that's my problem.
Yeah.
There's very little drama in this book, and there's a whole lot of melodrama. Like, I don't ever really feel satisfied with his relationships with most of the women in this book, because I feel like they're only there to be manipulated when Bendis needs to do something to Peter.
Well, that's what I really liked about Gwen up until the point that she dies, is like she is Peter's friend.
Yeah, and that's when she becomes...
She's never in danger, and he never really has to save her from anything.
And that's when she becomes more interesting, but then he fucking kills her almost immediately.
And I was like, whoa, shit, that really fucking sucks. Because the first time you read it, you don't know she's coming back. And that's my biggest problem with her coming back, is like, oh, now she's just a villain.
I hated the fact that she died, and I was overjoyed when she came back.
Well,
I hated that she died, too, because it was so fucking, like, typical.
Well, it was, like, right in the middle of that dark period, and it's just one more instance of them, like, kicking Peter in the nuts.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like, what's going to hurt him the most? Oh, well, let's kill Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? This is exactly what happened in the 616 universe. Is they killed Gwen Stacy, and the fans fucking flipped out. So they brought her back in the Clone Saga. Like, it's so reminiscent of the 616 to me that I was just like...
Did they bring her back in the Clone Saga?
That's why the Clone Saga happened, was they wanted to appease the... I mean, from comic legend, was they wanted to appease the
That's
fans.
not my recall.
I don't remember Gwen being a part... You're talking about Ben Reilly, ripped sweatshirt, fucking Scarlet Spider.
Originally it was... And this could be, like, not at all true, but people have said that it was originally a way for them to create a doorway for Gwen Stacy to come back into the Marvel Universe.
I've never heard that.
So,
but you actually did just remind me of something else that I wanted to ask you guys about, because I was incredibly confused by a certain thing. Mm-hmm. So in 616, Peter Parker's dad is Ben Parker's brother, who is married to Aunt May, whose maiden name was Riley. Mm-hmm. She's May Riley. She married Ben Parker. And so when Ben Reilly creates that name for her, he's taking his aunt's maiden name.
Yeah.
In Ultimate Spider-Man, they specifically say, like Aunt May says to the clone of Peter who is taking the role of his father, I wish you had never married my sister.
Yeah.
So there's Peter's dad, whose last name is Parker. And then Aunt May is also married to Ben Parker.
No, it's... Uncle Ben, they never
they say.
Do they
his
really?
name is Ben Parker.
Yeah.
So it's like two sisters, both married guys named Parker, who aren't related in any way. And it seemed weird to me, and I looked, and I couldn't find anybody talking about it online. And so I was wondering if anybody else like noticed that or knew anything about it, because it seemed really weird.
I didn't ever realize when they called him Ben Parker ever.
Let me.
It might be on his gravestone, though, right?
They refer to her as May Parker.
Yeah, she's referred to repeatedly as May Parker.
Yeah, and it's not like she didn't change her name after his death.
You're right. I don't think that they mention it, but her name is May Parker, and she doesn't change it after his death. So his name had to have been Ben Parker.
Well, but then even if
unless
her name
she
was
never
May
took
Parker
his name,
and she changes it back to May Parker,
But that would mean her dad took his wife's
you're
name.
right.
Or that they were both.
That's the thing.
named
Like, it doesn't make
Parker.
any sense.
That's really confusing.
Well, I mean, dude, this book is filled with unresolved plot lines and shit. Like, there's a moment when Peter gets shot saving Captain America. The next issue, he's getting up, and Captain America is gone, and there is never a fucking explanation. And I don't give a
And
fuck
that's
what
one of
version
those
Captain
crossover
America
things
you're
that I
talking
said I
about.
hate about.
Captain America would not fucking walk away from anybody, no matter what fucking Captain America he is.
Well, and again, this is like the shit that we've been talking about basically is everything after Ultimatum is kind of shitty.
Yeah.
Like, I think they should have just left Peter dead in Ultimatum.
I think it would have been, a little bit more powerful. There's this moment when Jonah...
Especially if...
When J. Jonah Jameson is talking about, he's in the he's in the Bugle.
The Bugle, yeah.
And he's talking to Robbie, and he says, he's had this revelation about his life, and he's like, I looked out my window, and do you know what I saw? I saw a hero.
Yeah.
And it's Spider-Man saving the girl, the woman.
So
that
fucking
and it's
good.
like this great moment,
Yeah.
right?
And the other
Wait,
moment...
did that actually happen in the book? I thought that was in Requiem.
No, that happens in the book.
Oh,
Happens in the
okay.
book.
He dives in and he's
Yeah.
saving her, and Jonah Jameson is in this fucking room, and like the water is surrounding the building, and the windows are cracking. And there's like cars floating around and shit.
Yeah, it's great. It's a great scene.
And
For me,
Then-
it would have been perfect if Aunt May and Gwen had died in the Ultimatum wave, and then the last page of Requiem didn't exist. That would be the perfect ending.
Well, what I like is that all these people that are Peter's friends are basically at his house waiting for him to come home.
yeah, and that's a great ending.
And Mary Jane and or no, it's not Mary Jane. It's Jessica Drew, the female clone of Peter Parker, and Kitty Pryde come home from looking for Peter, and all they have is his mask.
And that's it.
Like, that scene, like those
And then-
20, 30 panels that have no dialogue in them.
Oh, yeah.
Are so fucking powerful of them, like, looking around the city, and they have their hands up to their mouths, and they're, like, clearly yelling, like, like, Spider-Man, Peter, where are you? And they never find him.
They
And
just
it's
find
like,
his mask,
that was so fucking
It
powerful.
was
And even without reading
1,000 times
Ultimatum,
better than this stupid fucking. Oh, I beat the goblin. Yeah. Oh, I just died in an explosion. Oh, died.
that was so stupid. And just when he comes back, it's like he's not dating Pete. He's not dating Mary Jane for some reason because she broke up with him for some reason.
Yeah,
He's
no, it's
suddenly
stupid.
dating Mary Jane. It's like
'Cause
all of that shit
they
after
broke
sucks.
up with. She breaks up with him expressly so that they can get back together later.
Oh yeah,
in the series,
which happens like 10 times already
And
in the
this is
series.
what kills me. The thing I like the most about Kitty and Peter's relationship is that it's the one relationship he has with a female that I don't feel is only there for them to exploit for melodrama.
Yeah.
because she can handle her shit.
And it's a very realistic relationship
Yeah.
because they don't love each
And
other.
the way they
And
resolve
that's something that high school kids do, is get into relationships for all the fucking wrong reasons.
And the way it's resolved, the triangle between her and Mary Jane and Peter, I think is very well done.
Yeah.
And I think it's the only time a relationship is handled well in that whole book.
Well, and I
aside from his friendship with Bobby and Johnny Storm.
I like it during the Immonen stuff where Mary Jane and Peter have gotten back together, which is fine. I'm totally fine with that. After he and Kitty break up, like it happens during the Clone Saga, and I appreciate it, and it like works. And Kitty Pryde is now going to Midtown High or wherever they go
Yeah.
to school, and like Mary Jane calls her to help. She's like, I don't know who else to call. I need somebody to go find Peter for me.
Yeah.
And Kitty and Peter are talking, and he's like, no, your girlfriend called me, and I hate to admit it, but she's a great girlfriend. And it was like, I really like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, they're all maturing as characters. Like, everything is
but
moving
it's-
forward in the world.
That's the exception, not the rule.
Oh, no. And I think that, like, everything is moving forward in that universe, and it gets all the way up to issue 33, and it's like, good, and then everything that comes after.
And the thing
is
that
shit.
really bugs me
I
is
did
that
like
it's-
this after-school superhero school thing.
I hate that. I hate that because if that had happened in issue 20,
No, I agree. It
I
should
would
have
be
been
like, Hey, that's a
earlier.
really smart move. The Ultimates are going to help Peter become, like, that's that legacy stuff that I was talking about in DC.
Yes,
but this
right?
is a fucking 140 issues into
this
him
is
being
exactly the point
Spider-Man.
I was just gonna fucking make.
He's pretty good at being Spider-Man already.
You're throwing all this bullshit stuff that we've already seen, we've already experienced. It's old fucking hat, and it doesn't further Peter's
totally.
arc. It doesn't do anything to flesh out the world they're living in. And then in the fucking last 10 issues, you're gonna trot out, oh, maybe we should have the Ultimates train him, when that could have been the bulk of the book, and that would have been amazing.
The one caveat that I have to make to that is that they call out many times that even though like this is 160 issues, like it has been maybe
a year.
Months.
It's been over a little over a year.
A little over a year that he's been Spider-Man.
And like, that's why
that
it
is a
worked.
remarkably short amount of time when you're the fucking Ultimates and you're saving the world on a daily fucking basis and there's all this shit happening. It's like there's this kid out there and he's a fucking problem, but you know what? Like, as long as he's handling his shit, we don't have to deal with him right now.
Well,
and as soon as it becomes a thing where it's like, okay, now we have to deal with him, they fucking deal with it.
Well, and
but
it's,
the thing
I think
is,
it's
like,
done in a non-interesting way.
Of the Green Goblin coming back and blowing up the Triskelion and fucking rampaging through the city is this become... Because it happens, like...
Well, I mean... Ultimately, you have to come down to the fact that Nick Fury is kind of shitty at his job.
But I also feel like he's he's a very interesting character because of that. He's like not infallible.
I mean, I'm not saying he's a bad character. I'm saying he's bad at his job.
And I agree.
The thing is that you have this interesting opportunity to show Peter, who is not a sidekick, working with an established hero and doing something interesting, and you can use that to set up his death later because maybe he thinks he knows a lot more than he does.
Yeah.
It's just the book is
the end was definitely overdone.
Well, and here's the thing. Toby mentioned this earlier, and I really want to talk about it now, which is what makes this book have limitless possibilities is that it is not connected in any way to the 616 universe as far as they're not adherent to that continuity. So they can do anything. And what they chose to do with Peter's story, where they just age him to the age of 17 and then kill him, is
16.
No, he turned 17 right before he died.
Birthday party.
Yeah, it's his 16th.
Oh, is it 16? Yeah. Okay, so he turned 16 and then they just fucking kill him. Like, what you can do with an Ultimate Universe with a book like this is play with the timeline.
Yeah.
Like, where is the story 10 years from now where Peter is really good at being Spider-Man, and they're like, oh, what happened in those 10 years? And you're filling in the gap. Like, where's the time jump? Where's a lot of the stuff that we see in indie comics that make those kind of stories really interesting is, like, Bendis chose to stick with this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. And it's so linear.
Yeah.
And there's
there
exploration.
are a lot of issues that have flashbacks, though.
Oh, sure.
The flashbacks are never marked, which is another thing that annoys the shit out of me, because you'll be reading and you're like, oh, that's supposed to be a flashback? Would have been nice if there was a fucking mention of this.
No, I do agree, though I do tend to pick up panels. If I've seen a panel before, I can tell you, oh, this happened in a previous issue.
But what I think would have been really interesting is for them to go further. And what they did at the end of the series with the reboot of Volume 2 is take steps backwards in my mind.
I think what you can do is, I think there's a potential there to have somebody telling these stories to somebody else. You know? It's like, yeah, you can still have Peter Parker dead, but you could be telling these stories after the fact, where you're able to skip around a little more over Peter Parker's timeline and not stuff it so full. And the thing that really annoys me is the same thing when I talk about Blackest Night. What annoyed me about that, if I had read, like, this book is not the worst thing I've ever read, far from it.
No.
The fact that this book had so much potential and had so many moments where the writing is fucking on, like, spot on.
Yeah.
And the moments that Bendis captures, like, they're there.
Yeah.
All they needed was a little less, I'm going to really fuck with Peter, and a little more, how can I do this story justice?
Yeah.
And that's where I feel it falls through. And it's like so many times it walks right up to it and then closes the fucking door and walks away.
You hate it more because it's so close to being great.
Totally.
Not because of what it is, but because of what it isn't.
Yeah. Although I do have to say I respect the fact that they're like, we're going to kill off Peter Parker and this new guy is Spider-Man.
Absolutely.
No, that's great.
And that's where Spider-Man, I agree with you, is kind of like it kind of justifies it, right? Is because you have this moment.
Yeah.
Spider-Man?
Spider-Man.
So just to clarify, because we didn't say that we were going to read this.
Right, and I did.
Like about a year after Peter Parker's death, they put out a 5-issue limited series called Spider-Man, where Peter Parker from 616 travels to the Ultimate Universe, and he meets Miles Morales, and he meets the Ultimates, and he meets Aunt May and Gwen Stacy from that universe. Mm-hmm. And I told Joe to read the series, and I think I mentioned to a couple other people too, because I feel like it gives really good closure to the end of Peter Parker's story. Because it's Nick Fury going like, I'm helping this guy out because I fucked up so bad with Peter Parker and I let him die and I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
And he gets to meet an Aunt May who has lost Peter Parker, and she gets the catharsis of being able to say goodbye, but also see like, this is what Peter was trying to do. Like, this is the Peter that he wanted to be. And there is a piece of my nephew out there who is that person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that kind of stuff is what makes Peter dying young work in this universe. It's like, I think the Miles Morales stuff justifies the fact that Peter has to die.
I agree with that.
I still think that the last 25 issues of this book are shit.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
I mean, I can't really argue with that. And it's one of those things where it's like, they make up for it in the long run with this other stuff, but it doesn't make reading it any easier.
I think that in my I wish that I could just go back and undo the fact that I've read Volume 2, issues 1 through 15, and the death of Spider-Man, and just go, oh yeah, he died in Ultimatum.
Yeah.
Move on to Miles Morales. Like, that's what I wish had happened in my mind. And
well,
so,
I feel like
and I can
because
pretend
you can
to
take
ignore
those
it.
last like 30 issues out and have the same basic effect. Like, that just goes to show that they were unneeded, they were unwarranted, and they were useless.
Especially because, like, when I pitched this book and I said what issues we were going to read, I did mention that there were 2 trades we were going to read, which nobody else but me did, and that was the Ultimate 6 and
I've read those.
Ultimatum Requiem.
Yeah.
I totally forgot.
I did not read Requiem, but I've read Ultimate 6.
Requiem is Jonah writing...
Yeah.
Spider-Man's obituary.
Well, it happens in at the end of Ultimatum when he's basically like the scene that Joe was talking about, where he's like, I realized that I was wrong about Spider-Man. I saw a hero out there. I see what I have to do now, and basically writes the story of Spider-Man. And is like, oh, I'm gonna tell, the way that it should have been, and he's like sitting down to type. That's what happens in Requiem. That's what he wrote.
Yeah,
Requiem
is the obituary, which was absolutely phenomenal, and that's where it should have ended.
Yeah, and I think that for me that kind of stuff is cool, and I like that death. But again, that's all because of Ultimatum and not the stuff that comes after.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, for how much love I have for this series as just part of my life and just part of my comics reading, and I still think that people should read it.
Oh, absolutely.
There may be more wrong than good with it.
Well, I'm going to go back to what I said at the top of the show. It's a book which I feel incredibly conflicted about.
Yeah.
Like, there is so much good stuff in it, and it's just kind of surrounded by so much crap. Like, there's like a third of the series, like 50 issues, where it's just unremittingly dark and tragic and terrible, and I hate reading it.
Well,
and there's all this good stuff that's kind of seeded in and around that.
Yep.
And there's enough there that I want to recommend it to people, and I want people to read it. Mm-hmm. And I just wish there was some way where I could be like, just kind of read only these pages.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can. I mean, I think that you can. If I was going to recommend this to somebody, I'd say there's a big part in the middle that you don't need to read, so don't read it.
Well, the thing is that there's stuff that happens in those pages that are good.
Between Peter and Kitty all happens in the issues I don't like.
Yeah.
Right.
And those are the only parts of those issues I do
like. That's the thing. Like, it's like you've got a chicken, and there's some really good meat in there, and then there's a lot of gristle.
Yeah.
And you just got to like pick it apart to get at the good stuff.
And I
guess I should have said steak instead of chicken.
And to be honest, like that's kind of a metaphor for the whole comics industry for me. Is like sometimes it's worth digging through bullshit to get to the good parts, and
Absolutely.
that's how I feel about this series. It's like the good parts are good, and I like them.
I mean,
and the bad parts are bad, and I don't like them. And as a whole series, it's not perfect, and it's not invincible. It's not, like a great superhero epic from beginning to end.
Invincible isn't perfect.
I think
It's
comparing it to Invincible is not necessarily fair because I feel like Invincible is telling a different story.
Well, it's not fair, but I think it's necessary because
I agree.
There were two people, well, not two people, there were several people up for the job of writing Ultimate Spider-Man, and the person who wanted the job the most that didn't get it and is the most vocal about never having got it is Robert Kirkman.
And he would have made an amazing story about it.
But I'm glad he didn't get it.
No, I am too, because
we got Ultimate Spider-Man, Brian Michael Bendis' vision, and we get Invincible, which is awesome. And I'm so glad that he took a step away from Marvel to go create her own books.
Absolutely.
Because
I smile every time a writer at Marvel or DC steps away and does an indie book.
and I'm totally for that. And
Every time. I think it's awesome.
Cannot wait until indie creators can make as much money as Marvel and DC creators can. Because
as much money as Robert Kirkman.
no one will write for Marvel and DC anymore when they're like, well, I could just own my own book instead.
It'd be nice if there was less stagnation.
Yeah.
It'd be nice if you had like a cycle going through. So you had this kind of young, fresh-faced talent coming up into the superhero books, writing their take on Moon Knight for maybe 4 or 5 years, writing Spider-Man, writing whatever, and then going on to do other things and having this cycle. Where
I kind of feel like that is going on at Marvel right now. Kieran Gillian and Jamie McKelvey. I read their indie stuff. I really liked it. They came to Marvel. They've been doing stuff for a while. Gillian did that really great run on Journey into Mystery with Kid Loki.
Yep.
They've been doing all this stuff. It's been about, I want to say, 3 or 4 years that they've been doing this. And I figure give it another year or two and then let them go off and do more indie stuff. And I think that's great.
I think the thing is,
and Marvel has been really embracing lots of different tones in their books.
And you're getting a lot of great writers into Marvel, and you're getting a lot of great writers out of DC that are going to do their indie stuff because DC is like, no, we want you to do this. And they're like, well, we're not going to do that. And we're going to go over here, like what J.H. Williams is doing now, which is he's going to go and write something for, I've read an article about it, and I can't remember. Like, it's some indie stuff. But it'll be good because
the infrastructure for indie books is almost there where they can make the kind of money
that
they deserve to make it the mainstream stuff, and that's all. It's
only going to get better. It's really only good because as gloom and doom as it's easy to be when you look at the things that like what the New 52 represents. The reason they're able to do it is because people are reading comics. Yeah, and for every person that's buying a New 52 title, there are people that are buying shit like Fear Agent. There are people that are buying shit like, Prophet. Like Prophet and stuff in King City and multiple Image is releasing all of this Brandon Graham's like early stuff because there's a market for it, not because nobody's buying it. Yeah. And so it's coming up, and more and more people are getting involved in it. And what they're looking for are not the titles that they can't, that are kind of like obscure to them because they don't know the continuity. They're looking for stuff like Fractions Hawkeye. They're looking for stuff like Daredevil. They're looking for stuff that's in a low number that they can get into, and they're looking for indie stuff.
Well, and that's what I feel like Ultimate Spider-Man did back in the day, and I think that's why it's still important.
And that's
I think it's a very flawed work, but it's an important work.
I agree.
And that's exactly
I think it represents something good in superheroes.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much exactly where with all the problems I have, and as much as the sturming and dranging that I could do about this, I will say that at the end of the day, it's what this book represents that I think is super important, which is Bendis said, I want to tell these stories, and I want to tell them in a universe that isn't the 616.
Yeah.
And he did. And there's missteps, and that's probably because during at least part of this, he was writing how many other books?
Oh yeah, totally.
And
it does feel like there's a lot of editorial to tell him to like which people to use, and there's all these crossovers.
And we need
and
Carnage
stupid
because
shit.
these are hot characters, and that's something you can't get away from. But the fact is, the fact that this book exists speaks well of what Marvel was thinking and willing to do.
Yeah. And I think we've beat this book to death, but I think that what we've had to say about it is all.
Oh, wait. I have one more thing.
Okay.
During Mark Bagley's run, way too many extreme close-ups on people's faces.
Extreme close-up!
Really?
Yeah, exactly.
I've always kind of liked that panel.
It bugged me after 40 issues. Because they do it
I didn't
all the
see
time.
it was that. I don't. You're saying it, and I'm trying to think about it, which means it must not have stood out to me.
Yeah. I certainly noticed it.
All right.
But yeah, I think that we've done this book.
Okay, well, let's move on to the recommendations of, if you liked Ultimate Spider-Man, what else should you read?
Okay.
Toby, what do you think people should read?
There's one thing that came to mind immediately, but I know somebody else is going to say that, so I'm going to kind of juke to the left a little bit.
Yeah.
If you liked Ultimate Spider-Man, they actually did the exact same thing about 10 years earlier. It was Spider-Man 2099. And this was part of a very kind of similar, alternate universe, except instead of being your same old heroes restarted today, it was the Marvel Universe 100 years in the future with a very, very, very cyberpunk veneer on it. The world is ruled by corporations. There are no governments anymore. And the original launch was Spider-Man 2099, Doom 2099,
X-Men 2099.
X-Men 2099, and a new character called Ravage 2099. I think those were the original launch ones. They added some more, there was Punisher, there was Hulk,
Punisher, and Ghost Rider.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2099 was written either exclusively or majoritively by Peter Allen David, who's a pretty good writer, and it's a good series. I really enjoyed it.
Peter Allen David, is that the same?
Peter David.
That's Peter David who wrote the Hulk. Okay.
Yes. Same Peter David.
Okay.
The art is kind of intermittent. There's one issue, I think it's issue 8, that's fucking excruciatingly drawn. But for the most part, it's really well drawn. It's a lot of fun. It's got sci-fi elements that are really cool. And if you're reading Superior Spider-Man, the Spider-Man of the year 2099, Miguel O'Hara, has just shown up in the present day, and he's doing things that we don't know about yet.
By the time they listen to this, that story arc will have been resolved.
Okay.
It's already done in the single issues. But it did happen recently in that book. So if you have been reading it, you just read that?
Well, I'm up to the current date in Superior Spider-Man that's been released as of when we're recording this, and he's still around. He didn't go back to the future. If you think he did, no, he's hiding out.
Okay. Because I read
Superior Spider-Man, but also read Spider-Man 2099 because it's really good.
And read X-Men 2099 because that's also really good.
And don't read it. Well, Doom 2099 and none of the other ones.
Doom 2099
Ghost Rider
Ellis,
2099 was
right?
good.
All right.
Chris Bacala was doing the art. And
I didn't actually read that one, but Ravage and Punisher are really bad. I don't know about Hulk, but I never heard a good thing about it.
The thing that was great about Ghost Rider 2099 is they turned him into this kind of computer virus that was inhabiting a host.
Yeah.
But the art, it was right around the time that digital coloring, people were starting to use, the big publishing houses were starting to use digital coloring, and the art and the coloring in it, I just was stunning.
But I think that there's about 80 issues of Spider-Man 2099.
When did that start? Was it in the
92.
90s? 92? Okay.
It was September 92.
Okay. So, yeah, and that stuff was all really cool because they weren't really legacy characters. They were picking, some of them were, but some of them were
the X-Men, they were the fourth generation X-Men.
Yeah,
Spider-Man was kind of inspired by Spider-Man. They were trying to create new Spider-Man.
Were actually brand new characters.
Well, no, they were all new characters, but it was they make a reference at some point, the first leader of the X-Men was Xavier, then Magneto, then this other guy, and then the guy who's the leader of the X-Men when the book starts.
What's his name?
And then Doom was Dr. Doom, transplanted from the present, and was partially written in the later issues by Warren Ellis.
Yeah.
And it's one of his early works for Marvel.
And apparently all that stuff is really good. So yeah, the 2099 universe is super interesting, so definitely worth a read.
Yeah, and actually Doom 2099 just showed up in Uncanny Avengers.
Oh, cool.
But only for one page. So we'll see what happens with that.
Hey,
nice. Kang's doing shit.
Oh,
Kang
nice.
does.
God.
That's how Kang do.
You know that Kang, that is how the Kang do.
Yep.
Immortus.
All right. Joe, what do you think? What else should somebody read?
You know what's funny is that we all had the same thought reading this, and
Which is why I'm saving it for last.
We had this big discussion. We recorded the podcast that will come out after this.
2 episodes
after this yesterday, and we were talking, and we were all like, "Okay, well, who's going to recommend it?" Because we literally all had the same thought.
It's because it's obvious.
Because it is
and
obvious.
Important.
The parallel is obvious, and you're not going to be surprised when we get there. But I decided that I would recommend Young Avengers, which I think is really cool in the way that you basically have legacy characters that are kind of younger, and it happens in the wake of Avengers Disassembled. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's the Avengers are kind of like, we're not going to let you do this. And the Young Avengers are like, how can you stop us? We're going to do it anyway. So you're going to send us to our rooms? Like, that's
and
not
has
the way
the
it
first
works.
appearance of Kate Bishop.
It is the first appearance of podcast favorite Kate Bishop, also known as Hawkeye's main buddy.
Hawkeye.
Who's also Hawkeye.
Who's also Hawkeye. Yes, she's Hawkeye.
What is it with archers and having the same name? Because they did the same thing with Green Arrow.
Well, I think Green Arrow and Hawkeye do this interchangey thing. So, like when they did Quiver and they gave Green Arrow a sword, they made him a little bit more like modern, and then all of a sudden Hawkeye was back and he had a sword and he was a little more modern.
When he was Ronin?
Yeah, and that's when he was with Ronin. And so,
but what they never did for Green Arrow, the greatest thing they ever did for Hawkeye, which is put him in the Goliath strappy leather costume.
This is true.
The best
they also never let him be written by Matt Fraction.
Yeah.
But they did let him be written by Judd Winnick, which is good stuff. And Kevin Smith, which is probably some of the best Kevin Smith stuff.
I'm also pretty sure that Green Arrow never led the Suicide Squad.
No, he didn't.
Because Hawkeye led the Thunderbolts for a while.
He did lead the Thunderbolts for a while. He was also a member of Avengers West Coast.
I was going to say, was that your equivalent to the West Coast Avengers?
I don't believe in the West Coast Adventures. I'm pretty sure that was a hoax.
It was a real thing, because U.S. Agent, who was Canadian, was there, and War Machine was there, and the Living Lightning, and don't you talk shit about the Living Lightning, all right?
Who would talk shit about Living Lightning? That guy is amazing.
He is fucking amazing. But I thought it's Young Avengers is it's very much, it's a lot of fun, and they managed to tell some really interesting stories. And it's admittedly short run. It's really sad that it kind of started coming out at a time when a bunch of other shit was going on and kind of fell under the axe pretty quickly. But the stuff that's out there is
2 trades of good stuff, and then they're back.
Yeah,
in places in the Marvel Universe and as a series again.
It kind of became like
that
Avengers
series.
Academy
That
or
new
something.
series was kind of meh at first, but has gotten really good.
Yeah.
So they're back and they're bad, and one of them's black, and I'm sure there's another one that's mad. That was Lethal Weapon 2 reference. Randomly.
Thank you for pointing that out to us.
I think when you have to point out the reference, it failed.
I know. I don't care. I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it for you.
Somebody out there was like, oh!
It's what Mel Gibson says to Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon 2. But yeah, Young Avengers, read it. It's good. And it's short. So.
Yeah. It is not the 160
It is not the 160 issues of nobody plays, hey, let's tee off on this character, because that could be fun.
Yeah.
What about you, Chard? What are you going to recommend?
I had a really hard time picking this because...
Wait, but you don't have to because you're picking...
Well, I'm going to recommend stuff because I want to.
Oh, wait, I think I did that last time, too.
You did that, too. I had a really hard time picking because obviously we all leaned on one book, which I recommend basically every time. It's like, oh, hey, what should people read if they like comic books? Because it's like a fucking great comic.
Especially superhero comics.
Yeah, for sure. And so I was like, well, fuck. What I really love about Ultimate Spider-Man is the teen aspect of it. And so I'm trying to think of all my favorite teen superheroes and like what they're great books in. And Joe's right, like Young Avengers.
Are you going to recommend Mary Jane Loves Spider-Man?
Oh, totally.
Because that was my second pick.
Actually, that's really good,
totally
and I was. But I told you guys that I was going to recommend, and I am sticking with it. And I was thinking, what other stuff, is good teen stuff? And I was like, oh, well, I really love Supergirl, and there's lots of good Supergirl stuff, but there's no real like clear place to jump in, and like that series is kind of meanders a bit in parts, and it's like kind of hard for me to recommend stuff from. And I was like, oh, well, what about Jeff Johns' Teen Titans because I really like that stuff. But again, it's like very mired by continuity, and like if you're tired of seeing characters get shit on a lot, then that's maybe not the best book.
Yeah,
because all of those characters kind of have a shitty ending to them.
Well, Deathstroke shows up in the first major arc and like kneecaps Impulse.
Yeah,
which I take as a direct attack on Mark Waid. I'm sorry, it's like that's not fucking coincidence.
Well, that series, most of those characters that you grow to love over that series, because of Infinite Crisis, and Identity Crisis, which we are going to talk about on a future show. Teasers for a upcoming show about the DCU. They all kind of meet with not so fun consequences in their life coming up. So if you're tired of a character being shit on all the time, like Peter was in this book, that book may be not for you. So I think I picked in the top 3 teen superhero books that I think there are, and that is Brian Q. Miller's Batgirl.
Excellent choice.
And Toby has recommended this book on the show before. We've talked about it extensively because I fucking love this character. And when she was announced to be the next Batgirl, I was like, why are they bringing this character back?
It's Stephanie Brown.
It was Stephanie Brown because she had died in a very impactful way in War Games, War Drums.
In a very ham-fisted way.
In a very friggy way.
We can talk about that when we talk about War Games, War Drums, which will probably be never. But I would
love to recommend those. They're some of my favorites.
It's great, and I think that it's very interesting, and I thought that she died in a way that was very reminiscent of the way that Jason Todd died, which is to show the failings of a system in which you are bringing up characters to continue your legacy.
I'm less concerned about her actual death than the way that Leslie Tompkins was portrayed in that.
And that is a fine argument because it was kind of like, what?
Yeah, that's what I mean when I'm like ham-fisted. It's like, what the fuck?
But that stuff becomes even more fucked up later with this bringing back of the character because it's revealed that she was never dead. And so Stephanie Brown is back. She's not Robin. She's not Spoiler. She's going to be the new Batgirl. And I was really reticent to read this stuff because I was like, this is stupid. But I picked it up. And I read it, and I could not have been more wrong, because Barbara Gordon makes a fucking amazing mentor to this character, of which there have been, essentially, like, she's the 4th Batgirl, I think.
The 3rd.
Well,
because it's Barbara Gordon, Cassandra Cain, and then Stephanie Brown.
Not if you count Huntress as the 2nd Batgirl, because she wore the Cassandra Cain costume first in Cataclysm. However, I will give you possibly 3rd, technically.
When a nerdy podcast goes nerdy.
But,
this is our whole
anyway.
milieu, right?
Well, okay.
Right, that did happen. Right. So that's fine. You can count her as 3rd or 4th, whatever. But
no, I'm going to count it as 4th, because there's those people who argue that Stephanie Brown doesn't count as a Robin, and she totally does.
I agree.
She totally does count as
So if you're going to count her as Robin, I guess you have to count Huntress as Batgirl.
Because that is where that costume premiered, and was an interesting reveal, I thought. Was like, oh, who's running around as the new Batgirl? Anyway, she's a new Batgirl, of which there have been a few before, and she's really the first one that is not mentored by Batman, that is actually mentored by the first Batgirl. And I think that's important. I think we often talk about the, like, Ms. Male character, or with Joe often talks about the, what do they call it in comics?
The distaff character.
Distaff characters, where it's like, oh, she's
which is actually a very literal phrase.
Right. She's like, oh, she's Batgirl, right? She's, because of Batman, she has an identity. And this is Batgirl, who, in her own rights, has become basically an iconic hero, training her next legacy character, which is stuff I love about the DC universe. So it's very positive in my mind of like, oh, here's a great female character training the next female character in that line. It's important. And also Proxy is a very important character in that. So there's 27 issues of 24 issues of that, and in 3 trades, and they're all awesome. And it was one of the most upsetting things about the new 52 for me was Brian Q. Miller's gone from DC. It was
the most upsetting thing for me.
And Stephanie Brown never existed.
They're going to bring her back, and you know that they're going to fuck her all up, so
probably
prepare yourself.
So I was sad about that, but she's one of my favorite teen superheroes, and it's everything that I talked about in this book of, like, kids choosing to be heroes is very compelling, and I think that book's awesome, and I think that you should read it.
Excellent.
And over to Cade, who gets to pitch the book that we all first thought of.
And it's an incredibly fucking easy one.
Yeah.
If you liked Ultimate Spider-Man, read Invincible.
I think that's all that needs
Just
to be said.
like, I
Just
don't have
read
to
Invincible.
say
Like,
anymore.
how could you have possibly listened to this show for as long as it existed and not read Invincible?
Yeah, if you haven't, you're
I haven't
just a
read
bad
Invincible
person.
past the 4th trade, to be
And
honest, but
what's
still.
crazy, too, is we've never talked about this book proper on the show, so I do feel a little bit hypocritical being like...
It'll
everyone-
probably come up in a
Yeah,
long run.
we'll get there.
Spoilers.
And everyone has to read Invincible if you like superhero comics. Period.
Yeah.
End of statement. There is nothing... There's no excuse not to read this book.
I would say literally
Now-
almost everything that Ultimate Spider-Man gets wrong, Invincible gets so very right.
Yeah,
I
there-
did want to actually tell a story, though. Because
Okay.
the comic book store that I grew up in, practically lived in for a number of years, was actually the comic book store that Ryan Otley had a hold on in. And Invincible was not a top seller at our comic store, even though it was starting to get, all the award recognition and stuff while Cory Walker was still on it. At our shop, it never sold well. And then when Ryan Otley started, it blew up. And I wanted to talk a little bit. Well, my story is really about Ryan Otley because I hear a lot these days that he's kind of a downer to talk to at conventions and stuff because he always seems very tired. And to give a little background is, I think it's because he's one of the hardest working artists in the comic industry. I remember he would come into the store and while he was like standing around and picking up comic books, like he would do sketches for people. And if there wasn't just randomly he would do sketches. And if there wasn't somebody else who wanted a sketch, he would even ink it for them. And it was just, this guy cares about the artwork so much that he has spent 3 to 4 days working on a single page. And so, to me, that's Invincible.
And I think the artwork shows in this book is so strong, and to watch him go from panel 1, page 1 that he drew to where he is now is almost as awesome a journey as just the story itself. Like, the art continues to impress, and just he's become a master in the field of drawing superheroes.
And
for
this
sure.
book is the one that made him famous.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's the thing that he's known for, and rightly so. Like, it is a fantastic work of art.
And Invincible actually did cross over with Spider-Man at one point.
Yeah, and it's noteworthy that he jumped on the book right when it was about to be canceled, which is really interesting, that artists would take that kind of chance. But, I think he saw something in the work, and we all understand what he saw now.
I actually didn't know that it was going to be canceled. I just remember that Walker was having problems and didn't even finish his arc, and Kirkman brought Otley in like really quick.
Yeah, it was.
And they had sent stuff back and forth. Probably only a couple months before that issue came out.
Yeah, trying to be as spoiler-free as I can, there is a very big moment that happens at the end of the first trade. Or is it the second trade?
It's pretty
the
early
second
on.
trade.
It's very early on
Otley
in the
takes
story.
over midway through the second trade.
And there's a thing that happens. Oh, it's the beginning of the second trade, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So, yes, it's the very beginning, right after you meet the Invincible Universe's Justice League, essentially. A thing happens, and that original event of that, it's the end of the second
it's
trade?
halfway through the second trade.
Okay, so halfway through the second trade, there's a big reveal that Kirkman has said later was not intended to be until like the mid 30s or 40s of the issues, like much later on in the series. But up until that point, the book was basically just like your kind of run-of-the-mill superhero story, and people weren't really interested in it. And so Image Editorial came to him and was like, you should probably wrap everything up because your book's probably not going to make it that far. So if you have storylines in mind that you want to tell, you should tell them now. And so he drops that bomb in the middle of the second trade, and that's when the book really like started to pique everybody's interest. And I'm reading it in the trade. That's the part of the book that I read and was like, "What the fuck?" And like the book gets awesome.
And the very next panel is when Ryan Otley takes over.
Yeah, and so the book, to me, when I tell people to read Invincible, I always tell them read the first 2 trades together. Do not just read the first trade and put it down, because it is sort of forgettable after the first trade. You have to read the first 2 together. So my recommendation is either get the first 2 trades or go to your local library and get the hardcover that contains the first 2 trades. Check it out.
There's the first 3. So if you get that first hardcover, that'll set you up. Because...
And read that. And if you're not hooked by then, maybe
maybe
superhero books aren't for you. Try some of our other indie recommendations, because I think this is a great superhero book and a must read.
Awesome.
And it's my turn to pick the long run for the next time, and
the book for the next
long run. And we've gotten a lot of requests for more manga stuff on the show, so I've read a few manga that I really think the guys on the show would enjoy. And originally I was going to go with a well-known title, Akira. However, now I'm going to pull a fast one and go with a book called Pluto, and Urasawa I believe is the last name of the artist-writer of that book.
Yes.
And Pluto is based on an Astro Boy story called The World's Strongest Robot that Tezuka wrote, and it was a very short story told from the perspective of Astro Boy way back in the early Astro Boy stories. And Urasawa takes a side character from that book and writes a very large story about robots, what it means to be human. There's a lot of elements of like Blade Runner and Asimov's iRobot type stuff, because there's humans can't kill, they can't harm.
Robots can't harm humans.
Yeah, robots are programmed so they can't harm humans. However, there was one robot in the past, you learned this early on, that killed humans and they don't know why. And now these robotic experts are being killed. And the person who's investigating these crimes is a robot, and he believes that a robot's carrying them out, and he's trying to figure out how they broke their programming. So it's a really great story if you like robots and futuristic stuff and detective stories and big climactic finales. It's a good book. It's a little long, but it's a fast read. It's manga, and I think you guys will like it. So that's what we're reading.
160 issues long, is it?
So
I don't remember how long it is.
Read Pluto.
Pluto.
And we'll talk about it in a couple of months.
Yep. All right. Thanks for listening, guys, and we will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.